Welcome to our annual OSHA Safety and Compliance Training. LARSEN Manufacturing has a sincere interest and a lawful obligation to provide a safe and healthful workplace. Keeping all employees informed is very important. We will cover the following topics: emergency procedure, action plan, and fire safety, personal protective equipment, fall protection, forklift and pedestrian safety, electrical safety, lockout, tagout, hazard communication, safety equipment, bloodborne pathogens, slips, trips, and falls, machine guarding, welding, cutting, and brazing, power platforms, hand tools, and sexual harassment. What is OSHA? OSHA stands for Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and they are the federal regulatory agency of the United States of America Department of Labor. OSHA has visitorial powers to inspect and examine workplaces to assure and enforce a safe and healthy work environment for all working men and women of America. Why is health and safety important? Environmental health and safety is essential in every workplace in the United States of America. EHS assures employees are safe from known hazards that could potentially cause injury or illness. At LARSEN Manufacturing, we have a department dedicated to ensure the health and safety of all employees, which also enhances work productivity, lowers costs for business, and builds trust between employee and employer. All personnel is responsible for working safe and reporting any issue that may help prevent an accident. LARSEN Manufacturing requires the following to help maintain a safe working environment: adhere to all safety policies and rules listed in the LARSEN Manufacturing Safety Guidelines. Observe. Keep your eyes open for any unsafe acts. And finally, report all incidents, injuries, and near misses to your supervisor or EHS team, no later than the end of your shift. Failure to report could result in disciplinary actions. It is important to advise your supervisor whenever taking any prescription or over-the-counter medications. Also, never perform any assignment that you haven't been trained on or that you feel is unsafe. We will now cover the following safety topics, starting with emergency procedure, action plan, and fire safety. We will focus on these important emergency procedures: fire evacuation map, causes of workplace fires, fire prevention, first aid and fire extinguisher map, fire class type, and emergency action plan. In the case of an emergency, we initiate the emergency action plan. All employees will evacuate the building through the nearest and safest possible exit. The department head and emergency response team will take a head count at each evacuation stage. Fire evacuation map. Emergency evacuation map at 1201 Allenson Road. All red arrows point to your emergency exits. Emergency evacuation map at 401 Terrace Drive. Red arrows point to your emergency exits. Emergency evacuation map at 930 Tourette Court. Red arrows point to your emergency exits. Emergency evacuation map at 1300 Allenson Road. All red arrows point to your emergency exits. Emergency evacuation map at El Paso facility. All red arrows point to your emergency exits. Emergency evacuation map at Brownsville facility. Red dotted lines and arrows point to your emergency exits. Causes of workplace fires. Common causes of industrial workspace fires: static electricity, hazardous chemicals, impure dirty chemicals, combustion engines, hot work, mechanical sparks, faulty electrical wiring, faulty equipment and machinery, improper maintenance, careless smoking of cigarettes on premises, failure to properly train employees, failure of supervisors to ensure employees are complying. Fire prevention. If working with flammables, use approved containers that are designed to prevent sparking activity. Keep area free from drips and spills. Follow rules for disposing of containers and items containing flammables. Check your equipment. Check and maintain machinery at regular intervals. Check that firefighting equipment and extinguishers are recharged and in operational condition. Work safely. Keep work area clean and tidy. Show care in handling combustible materials. Use safety cans for oily or flammable rags. Smoke only in designated areas. First aid and fire extinguisher map. First aid and fire extinguisher map for 1201 Allenson Road. Orange dots mark where you can find fire extinguisher, and green dots mark where you can find first aid kits. First aid and fire extinguisher map at 401 Terrace Drive. Red dots mark where you can find fire extinguishers, and green dots mark where you can find your first aid kit. First aid and fire extinguisher map at 930 Tourette Court. Green dots mark where you can find your fire extinguishers, and blue dots mark where you can find your first aid kits. First aid and fire extinguisher map for 1300 Allenson Road. Red dots mark where you can find your fire extinguishers, and green dots mark where you can find your first aid kit. First aid and fire extinguisher map for El Paso facility. Red dots mark where you can find fire extinguishers, and green dots mark where you can find first aid kits. Brownsville facility. Red squares marks first aid stations, and green circles mark eye wash stations. Fire class type. Class A fires involve common combustibles such as wood, paper, cloth, rubber, trash, and plastics. Class B fires involve flammable liquids, solvents, oil, gasoline, paints, and other oil-based products. Class C fires involve energized electrical equipment, such as wiring, controls, motors, machinery, or appliances. Class D fires involve combustible metals such as magnesium, lithium, and titanium. Class K fires involve combustible cooking media such as oils and grease commonly found in commercial kitchens. Fire extinguishers classified A, B, and C are dry chemical for multi-purposes, while Class D is dry powder and Class K is wet chemical. Easy to follow steps on how to use a fire extinguisher using the PASS method. Pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. First, pull the pin, then aim at the base of the fire, then squeeze the lever, and last, sweep from side to side. Emergency Action Plan. Our emergency action plan provides straightforward steps to help protect lives and reduce risks in various emergency situations. The plan ensures that employees, contractors, and visitors know what to do and how to act during critical incidents, such as a fire, tornado in Illinois facilities only, oil spill, power outage, medical emergency, severe thunderstorm, gas leak, accidents with injury, and now including bomb threat and active shooter. The emergency action plan shows us the emergency type initial response, activity, next steps, and follow-up. In the case of a fire, the initial response is to call 911 and use one of the internal pool boxes. In the case of a tornado in Illinois facilities only, the initial response is to be aware of emergencies and proceed to shelter if so directed. In the case of an oil spill, initial response is to contain spill and call internal response team. In the case of a power outage, initial response is to stay inside. In the case of a medical emergency, initial response is the evaluation of severity by management and/or the safety committee. In the case of a severe thunderstorm, the initial response is the evaluation of severity by management and/or the safety committee. In the case of a gas leak, initial response is to call 911. In the case of accident with injury, initial response is the evaluation of severity by management and/or the safety committee. In the case of a bomb threat, initial response is to call 911 and proceed as directed by the authorities. In the case of an active shooter, initial response is to call 911 as soon as safe. First aid is the immediate and basic care given until first responders arrive. LARSEN Health and Safety Team is certified to administer first aid. Your first step in attending to an injured coworker is to call for the Health and Safety Department or a nearby member of management. Personal protective equipment. All employees are required to properly wear PPE for the job and task assigned. This includes safety glasses, prescription safety glasses, over-the-glass safety glasses, safety shoes, gloves, earplugs, and face protection. All safety glasses must be ANSI Z87.1 approved. OSHA requires employees to wear hearing protection in environments louder than 85 decibels. Hearing protection is required in this facility while presses are in operation. Wearing appropriate footwear protects you from crushed and broken toes or feet, sprained ankles, wounds from nails or sharp objects, burns, slips, trips, and falls, and extreme temperatures. Larsen Manufacturing has a sincere interest in protecting employees from noise exposure at 85 decibels and up to 8 hours or more that could cause hearing loss over time. An average press in this facility is up to 85 decibels, which is why employees are required to always wear hearing protection in this facility during normal shift hours, which Larsen provides. Larsen also hires a third party to perform annual hearing testing. How to properly put on hearing protection. As seen pictured, roll entire earplug into a crease-free cylinder. Pull back ear by reaching overhead with free hand. Gently pull top of ear up and out. Insert earplug well into ear canal and hold until it fully expands. This is only one example of how PPE can save you from a serious injury. As you see pictured, there is a grinding disc stuck to the lens of the safety glasses, which could have been stuck in the man's eye instead if he chose not to wear PPE. Gloves must always be worn in areas required by Larsen Manufacturing as per OSHA standard 1910.138. When working on large metal parts, Larsen's policy requires employees to wear forearm protection. We know these as sleeves, and they help protect you from a potential laceration injury. Larsen Manufacturing will provide you with all the PPE equipment that is required. Worn out PPE must be thrown away and replaced by your supervisor. Every year, Larsen employees are eligible for safety shoes at no expense to the employee. Fall protection. If you are working 4 feet above ground, You must wear a harness and lanyard or lifeline. You must inspect it before each use. If you are working on a ladder, you must follow the next important steps. First, make sure the steps on the ladder are free and clear of obstructions. Be sure the ladder steps are dry. When using a ladder, remember to always have 3 points of contact. And last, inspect the ladder before each use. Forklift and pedestrian safety. Awareness of proper forklift and pedestrian safety is important as it can reduce or eliminate fatalities and serious injuries. Pedestrians have the right of way, but never assume a forklift operator can see you. Keep a safe distance of 20 feet, and as you make eye contact with the operator, allow them to give you a signal to continue your path safely. All forklifts in our facility have a blue light safety feature. If you see this light, it means there is a forklift close by. You must stop where you are and wait for a signal from the operator to acknowledge they see you and you may continue your path safely. Never allow yourself or anyone else to be carried by a forklift by sitting on the back, riding or standing on the forks, or hanging from the sides. If you see this, you must immediately report it to a health and safety team or a supervisor. This action will lead to disciplinary actions up to and including termination. Never stand or pass under a lifted load. Being aware of your surroundings can save you from a serious accident. All forklift operators must be aware of the following safety points. Follow the manufacturer's instructions and always wear your seatbelt. Know the lift's weight capacity and never exceed it. Avoid raising or lowering loads while moving. Inspect the lift and check its nameplate before each shift. Lock and tag out faulty lifts. Drive at 5 miles per hour or less, honking at intersections and when reversing. Stay aware of your surroundings and look back when reversing. Only certified operators may use lifts and must carry their certification card. Failure to comply with company policy will lead to disciplinary actions up to termination. When changing propane cylinders, do not do it inside the building. Take them outside and change them in the designated propane area. Operators must wear correct PPE when changing propane tanks. Electrical safety. What is current? It is the flow of an electrical charge. What does live mean? It is an electrical term that a wire has electricity flowing through it. What is an arc? It is an electric current that leaves its intended path and travels through the air from one conductor to another. If the integrity of a device or electrical control is compromised, as shown in these pictures, stop work immediately and report it to a member of management. If you notice any device or electrical cord that has exposed wires, just like on these pictures, stop using the equipment and report it to a member of management immediately. Always assume an exposed wire is live and make sure you do not touch it. An arc flash is a type of electrical explosion that occurs when an electric current discharges through the air between conductors. This happens when a person is too close to an open electrical panel. So if you see an open electrical panel in this facility, do not get close, stay at least 15 feet away, and report it to a member of management, because humans can be conductors for electricity. Only authorized personnel are approved to work on electrical components. Do not attempt to work on anything electrical in this facility if you are not an authorized personnel. Report any electrical hazard you see to health and safety or any member of management. If a coworker happens to get electrocuted, do not touch the person. turn off the power supply, and call 911 immediately. Lockout tagout. Lockout tagout is a technique used to prevent the release of hazardous energy during servicing or maintenance. Lockout tagout is performed by physically putting a lock and tag at the energy isolation points. At Larsen Manufacturing, we have lockout tagout procedures. Only authorized and trained personnel can perform the lockout tagout. Failure to perform a lockout tagout or removing a lock and tag will result in disciplinary action. Hydraulic, electrical, pneumatic, and mechanical machines can have an unexpected release of energy. Therefore, not isolating energy properly by using the lockout tagout can lead to serious injuries or even fatalities. It is of equal importance to use correct and not damaged locks and tags. Communicating clearly is very important, as well as not bypassing any procedures or skipping steps. All affected employees must be trained to recognize energy hazards and follow lockout-tagout procedures accordingly, while authorized employees who will perform lockout-tagouts need to make sure that they use the proper equipment. Only use approved locks and tags for the energy source. Lockout-tagout steps are: first, notify employees, shut down equipment, isolate energy sources, lock and tag out, release stored energy, and finally verify isolation. Verify for safety. Always confirm the equipment is fully de-energized before starting work. Hazard communication. Hazard communication is the practice of informing employees about the potential physical and health hazards associated with chemicals they may be exposed to in the workplace. We do this through labels on containers, safety data sheets, and training programs. A hazardous chemical is any chemical which is classified as a physical hazard, health hazard, simple asphyxiant, combustible dust, pyrophoric gas, or hazard not otherwise classified. Physical hazards are chemicals that can cause fire, explosion, or violent reactions. Health hazards are chemicals that are harmful to your health and can cause short-term acute health problems or long-term chronic health problems. OSHA considers a health hazard to be any chemical which is toxic, is corrosive to the skin or eyes, is a respiratory sensitizer, may cause cancer, birth defects, or reproductive issues, attacks specific organs, or is harmful or deadly when inhaled. Hazard communication starts at the chemical manufacturing plant. Chemists classify and categorize the chemical. Safety data sheets and labels are created. And finally, safety data sheets and labels are passed along to each company and person who handles the chemicals. OSHA requires that we keep an inventory on all hazardous chemicals. Therefore, when a chemical arrives at our company, the information that's passed along with it is added to our company's chemical inventory. We have right-to-know centers in every facility at Larsen Manufacturing. The right-to-know centers include SDS binders with safety data sheets of every chemical being used in the facility. The safety data sheets explains what you need to know to safely work with a chemical and helps ensure that we understand it. These right-to-know centers with SDS binders and safety data sheets are readily accessible to employees in the work area during every work shift. What you see pictured is a GHS label. Hazard pictograms are symbols that warn people about the presence of hazardous chemicals. They help people understand the potential harm to people and the environment. Here are some GHS pictograms. Flame over circle, flame, exploding bomb, skull and crossbones, corrosives, gas cylinder, health hazard, environment, and exclamation mark. When transferring chemicals into secondary containers, the new label must include the product name matching the SDS, signal words like danger or warning, hazard statements, pictograms to show the type of hazard, and precautionary statements. These labels are created by the EHS department. If you come across a container that does not have a label or has a wrong label, notify your supervisor immediately. Your supervisor, along with the EHS department, will make sure that the container is labeled correctly. Never use a chemical container without a label. Larsen Manufacturing has created a written HAZCOM program. It documents in detail Larsen's plans for communicating chemical hazards. You have a right to review the written HAZCOM program whenever you want. The program is located in Larsen's Health and Safety Office, and it is available upon request. Safety practices and equipment. The following are simple actions you can take to stay safe when working with chemicals. Remove all jewelry. Use eye and face protection. After using a chemical, wash your hands. Clean and store safety gear properly. Larsen Manufacturing has eye wash stations in every facility. For emergency situations when chemical gets into your eyes, it is important to be familiar with the eye wash station and know where the nearest station is located. Blood-borne pathogens. Blood-borne pathogens are disease-causing microorganisms that live in a person's blood and other potentially infectious materials known as OPIM and can make you extremely sick or even cause death. These pathogens can enter your system when an infected person's blood or OPIM encounters your eyes, mouth, nasal membranes, or an open wound. You could become infected by aiding a bleeding coworker, cleaning up blood after an accident, or being cut by a sharp object that's contaminated with someone's blood. If you become injured while on the job, call for help immediately. If you're bleeding, do what you can to keep any responders from being exposed. Remember, as standard precaution, treat all blood and OPIM as if it is infected. If you accidentally come into contact with someone else's blood or OPIM, follow the next 3 simple steps. Remove all clothing and shoes that have been contaminated with blood and dispose of them in a biohazard bag or receptacle. Thoroughly wash the affected skin with soap and water. Flush any splashes to your eyes, nose, or mouth with water. Report the incident to your supervisor as soon as possible. In case of an exposure incident where blood or OPIM gets in your eyes, mouth, nasal membranes, or open wounds, or a contaminated object punctures your skin, follow the previously mentioned precautions and seek medical attention as soon as possible. Slips, trips, and falls. Slip, trip, and fall hazards can exist anywhere on a job site. These hazards can always be prevented. To help prevent slips, trips, and falls, always wear appropriate footwear that is clean and dry. Take your time and be aware of your surroundings. Keep at least one hand free to use handrails. Keep a clear line of sight when you walk. Machine guarding. Machine guarding is important and necessary in a manufacturing setting when robotics or moving parts are in play and can prevent potential accidents or even loss of life. Without machine guarding, serious injuries can and do occur. Larsen Manufacturing has two-handed trip devices on the presses to keep operators safe, as you can see pictured. Larsen Manufacturing has guarding around the coils in the press area. When the press is operating, employees are not allowed to pass the barrier. This action could lead to disciplinary action, including up to termination. Larsen Manufacturing has different types of sensors on the press machines to prevent any operator from potential harm. The point where work is performed on the material, such as cutting, shaping, boring, or forming of stock, must always be guarded for the operator's safety. If any machine guard has been bypassed or is missing from the press or machine, stop work and report it to a member of management immediately. Welding, cutting, and brazing. The three basic types of welding include gas, which is slower and easier to control than electric arc, uses gas flame over metals until molten puddle is formed. Most popular fuels used with oxygen include acetylene, MAP gas, and hydrogen. Arc is where two metals are joined by generating an electric arc between a covered metal electrode and the base metal. Oxygen and arc cutting is metal cutting and welding that severs or removes metal by a flame or arc. The most common cutting processes are oxygen cutting, where metal is heated by a gas flame and an oxygen jet does the cutting, and arc cutting, where intense heat of electric arc melts away the metal. The following are hazards of welding operations: fire hazards, metal splatter, electric shock, explosion hazards, released gases, and radiant energy. Fire hazards should be removed if the welded object cannot be readily moved. Guards should be used if removing fire hazards is not possible. Restrictions apply. No cutting or welding is allowed if none of the above is possible. The following special precautions must be considering when welding or performing hot work. Protect nearby combustible materials from sparks that might escape through openings in floors or walls. Trained personnel must stand by and perform fire watch duties. Fire extinguishers must be ready for instant use. Fire watch lasting at least 30 minutes after welding or cutting operations is required, if more than a minor fire might develop, and if certain combustible materials are present. An authorized and responsible individual must inspect the area and designate precautions, preferably by written permit. Combustible materials must be swept 35 feet away. Combustible floors must be wetted or protected while preventing arc welding shock. Prohibited areas for welding include unauthorized by management, where sprinklers are impaired, explosive atmospheres, near storage of large quantities of readily ignitable materials. Relocation of combustibles shall be moved 35 feet away or properly protected or shielded. When welding or cutting containers, used containers must be cleaned of flammable materials or other materials that could release toxic or flammable vapors when heated. Venting and purging is required for hollow spaces or cavities. To protect other personnel, welding cable and other equipment must be kept clear of passageways, ladders, and stairways. Eye protection and protective equipment of specific appropriate types must be worn. Nearby workers must be protected from arc welding rays by using a welding curtain as seen pictured. Approval and marking of cylinders and containers must be DOT compliant, legibly marked, must have ANSI compliant connections and valve protection. Store cylinders and containers away from heat sources, such as radiators. When inside buildings, they must be well protected and ventilated in a dry location at least 20 feet from combustibles. All assigned storage spaces must be protected from damage and tampering. When empty, close all valves. When not in use, hand-tied valve protection caps. Protect oxygen cylinders from fire hazards. Distance from fuel gas cylinders or combustibles must be greater than 20 feet. Electrode holders, when not in use, must be kept from shocking people and objects. How to protect against electric shock. Never use cables with splices within 10 feet of the holder. The welder should not coil or loop welding electrode cable around parts of his or her body. Maintenance must ensure safety by replacing damaged cables and equipment, replacing hose with leaks, burns, worn places, and defects. Working cables must be joined properly and have adequate insulation. Cylinders, cylinder valves, couplings, regulators, hose, and apparatus must be kept free from oily or greasy substances. Oxygen cylinders shall not be handled with oily hands or gloves. A jet of oxygen must never be permitted to strike an oily surface, greasy clothes, or enter a fuel oil or other storage tank. Fuel gas cylinders shall be placed with valve end up whenever they are in use. Before connecting a regulator to a cylinder valve, please do the following. Open the valve slightly and close immediately. Open the valve while standing to one side of the outlet, never in front of it. Never crack a fuel gas cylinder valve near other welding work or near sparks, flame, or other sources of ignition. Always open the cylinder valve slowly. Power platforms. Elevated work platforms are used to safely lift people for job tasks. They include scissor lifts, cherry pickers, and boom lifts. Elevated work platforms are essential for daily operations, but can be dangerous if misused. We will learn to safely operate mobile elevating work platforms to avoid injuries and damage. We will cover the following topics: inspecting equipment before use, identifying hazards, safe operation and elevation, rescue procedures, avoiding accidents with pedestrians, and working on different surfaces. When using elevated work platforms, you must follow these precautions. Use the lift only on hard level surfaces. Avoid operation in winds over 20 miles per hour or near power lines and vehicles. Lower the lift before moving. Never drive while elevated. Perform daily inspections. Do not use if damaged or unsafe. Keep railings secure. Do not stand on them or use ladders for extra height. Maintain a 15-foot safety perimeter and clear the platform after use. Mark the work area with cones and ensure no one walks underneath. Before using elevated work platforms, you must understand all caution, danger, warning, and operating manuals to avoid injuries. Red and the word danger indicates an imminently hazardous situation which, if not avoided, will result in death or serious injury. Orange and the word warning indicates a potentially hazardous situation which, if not avoided, could result in death or serious injury. Yellow with alert symbol and the word caution indicates a potentially hazardous situation which, if not avoided, may result in minor or moderate injury. Yellow without alert symbol and the word caution indicates a potentially hazardous situation which, if not avoided, may result in property damage. Green and the word notice indicates operation or maintenance information. Equipment must be inspected by operator before each use, no exceptions. Things that should be inspected are the following: operating and emergency controls, safety devices, personal protective devices, tires and wheels, air, hydraulic, fuel systems for leaks and compromised electrical wiring and components, cable and wiring harness, guardrail system, hydraulic reservoir level, coolant level, posted capacity ratings. Inspect the area in which the lift will be used to check the following. Make sure the level surface does not exceed manufacturer slope recommendations. Check for holes, drop-offs, bumps, debris, etc. Check for overhead obstructions and overhead power lines. Make sure and confirm the surface is stable. To prevent your elevated work platform from tipping over, Do not exceed manufacturer-rated load capacity limits. Do not travel to job location with lift and elevated position. Set up proper work zone protection when working near lift and pedestrian traffic. Avoid excessive horizontal forces when working on elevated scissor lifts. Do not operate lift in winds more than 20 miles per hour. Hand tools. When working with hand and portable power tools, make sure you do the following. Maintain regularly. Use right tool for the job. Inspect before use. Operate according to manufacturer's instructions. Use the right personal protective equipment. Use guards. Hazards are usually caused by misuse and improper maintenance. Do not use the following if encountered. Wrenches when jaws are sprung. Impact tools, chisels, and wedges when heads have mushroomed. Tools with loose, cracked, or splintered handles. A screwdriver as a chisel. Tools with taped handles, as they may be hiding cracks. Always use the right tool for the job. Each tool is designed for a specific function. Use only tools that are in good condition and do not use if they are damaged. Always wear eye protection to protect your eyes from flying objects and tool parts. Pay attention to positioning to ensure that balance can be maintained and prevent muscle strain. Take the following precautions when working with power tools. Disconnect tools when not in use, before servicing and cleaning, and when changing accessories. Keep people not involved away from the work. Free both hands to operate the tool. Keep tools sharp and clean. Consider what you wear. Loose clothing and jewelry can get caught in moving parts. Remove damaged electric tools and tag them "Do not use." Do not carry portable tools by the electric cord. Don't use electric cords to hoist or lower tools. Don't yank cord or hose to disconnect it. Keep cords and hoses away from heat, oil, and sharp edges. Pneumatic tools are powered by compressed air. They include nailers, staplers, chippers, drills, and sanders. Its main hazard is getting hit by a tool attachment or by a fastener the worker is using with the tool. Take the same precautions with an air hose that you would take with electric cords. Good practices when working with power tools include operating within design limits, using gloves and safety shoes, storing in a dry place, not using in wet locations unless approved, working in well-lit areas, and ensuring cords don't present a tripping hazard. Sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is unwanted and unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature that interferes with work or creates a hostile environment. Examples of sexual harassment include inappropriate jokes, comments, or gestures, unwanted touching or advances, displaying offensive or explicit material, quid pro quo situations, such as offering benefits in exchange for sexual favors. The consequences of sexual harassment are serious and can impact both individuals and the workplace. How it impacts? Sexual harassment creates a hostile work environment and damages team morale and productivity. It can lead to emotional distress for victims and a breakdown in trust among colleagues. Employees found responsible for sexual harassment will face disciplinary actions. These may include verbal or written warnings, suspension, and/or termination of employment, depending on the severity of the behavior. If you experience or witness sexual harassment, it is important to report it and seek help. Know you have resources. Who to contact? Report any concerns to your supervisor or the HR department. They are available to assist you and ensure a safe working environment. Below are some outside resources. All reports are taken seriously, handled confidentially, and promptly. You are not alone, and support is available to you. You have the right to review all written safety policies. The written policies can be found in Larsen's Health and Safety Office and are available to you upon request. Thank you for helping us maintain a safe working environment.